Hello everyone, I'm John Evans. Welcome to another episode of One on One. Most people who watch our newscasts know that I love the game of golf. That's why it's doubly enjoyable for me to have John Maginnes as the guest on my podcast this week. I actually covered John when he played golf for East Carolina University, followed his success on the PGA Tour as he played alongside the greats like Tiger and Nick and Freddie for a decade. Then, watching him get the opportunity and grow as a golf analyst, covering events all around the world for the Golf Channel and now for SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio. John has now moved his family here to Wilmington, and he still covers the game that he loves, and boy, is he enjoying fatherhood the second time around. Well, John Maginnes, former PGA Tour player, on-course commentator, and the co-host of Catrick and Maginnes on Tap on SeriousXM PGA Radio. Welcome to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thanks for having me. You must have run out of people.
What do you like better, playing golf or talking about people who are playing golf?
Well, I can tell you which one's easier. Obviously playing the PGA Tour was a dream from the time I was 10, 12 years old, and getting to realize that dream was fantastic. And I would have liked to have been a little bit better at it. I was at Jim Furyk's house a couple of weeks ago, and boy, I wish I'd practiced that hard. It's a really nice house. But the fact of the matter is, I knew when it was over. I got hurt, and the game started to pass me by a little bit with the speed these kids are generating and the things that they could do. And I actually went and got an insurance license. I was going to sell you life insurance. And if I had done that 20 years ago, I'd be rich now. Instead, I'm like you. We work for a living. You're prettier than I am, but they only need my voice out there on the golf course. So we talk and we get paid for it. Everybody talks. We manage to get paid for it. I'd say that's pretty good.
Do you think that we'll ever see another Tiger Woods? John, you played alongside him. Then you had the chance to watch him grow into the player he was. Will we ever see another one?
I don't think so. It was such an incredible confluence of events that happened. He if you think about Arnold Palmer, way back in the day, Arnold Palmer came in as the king as TV was becoming a bigger part of our lives. Tiger Woods became Tiger Woods as the internet was becoming a bigger part of our lives. So not only was he the greatest player that I ever got to see play, but then he had all these other things that happened at the same time. And, you have to think that at one point in time, there probably weren't 5 people on the planet more famous than he is. So, or than he was. No, I don't think we're ever going to see, we'll see generational players again. Of course, every sport will. But I don't think that in my lifetime we'll see anybody that we can compare to Tiger.
Who's number one in the world right now? Not necessarily on the rankings, but who do you think is the best player in the world right now?
It's such a hard question because there's so many great players. I mean, Jon Rahm winning the U.S. Open was incredible. And, he has all the physical skills to be the best player in the world. And then you look at Justin Thomas and Rory McIlroy and Jordan Spieth and think, well, where are they lacking? And so I don't think the game's ever been in better shape in terms of what it can create in terms of drama. We see playoffs just about every week now because it's so hard to win.
What's the biggest difference now? I mean, you mentioned it a little while ago, but what's the biggest difference in the game, the way it's played now, versus the pro game that you played in mid-90s to mid-2000s?
It's the difference between propeller planes and jets. It's that vast. And it's in other sports too. I mean, tennis is probably the sport that has been affected the most by technology just in the style of play, but golf is pretty close behind, and that they're doing things that we never even considered doing in terms of lines that they're taking, but they don't need to ever hit 155-yard 7-iron head high. They don't have the nuanced games that those who came before them did, like Payne Stewart and and guys like that were my heroes. And before that, Fuzzy Zeller and of course Jack and Tom Watson, all those guys. They had a different game. These guys bomb it. They hit it as hard as they can, and then they go find it and hit a wedge on the green if they can. And that's just the way that they play. There's nothing. It took me a while, the grumpy old guy. It took me a while to see the beauty in that style of play as well. But I walked every hole at Winged Foot with Bryson DeChambeau when he won the U.S. Open last year, and I mean, it was unreal, the things that I was seeing, flipping wedges into the 520-yard 16th hole, and I thought that's a driver and a hybrid for some of this field, and it's just going to continue to grow every time a PGA Tour player, pick one, loses his card. He's not replaced by another guy like him. He's replaced by a guy who carries it 320 yards.
But don't you think, and I've heard you talk about this, the everyman is more excited to see that. The everyman is excited to see it. Okay, you're going to put trees out there 310. I want to see somebody that can take it over the trees 310 instead of somebody that can hit it 260 and bend it around the trees.
I agree. I mean, I think it's unrelatable is what makes it so exciting. I mean, we can't even wrap our brain around what they're doing. And in many ways, that's why the LPGA Tour is they get offended when I say this, but it is a more relatable game. I don't understand why that's a negative, but I've been told on the Twitter that that's a negative thing to say. But it is a more relatable game. I can hit it 250 yards like they do. I can't carry it 310. Even the short guys. Brent Snedeker carries it 290. That's really far.
Yeah.
And he hits it straight. Yeah. And it's not far enough.
Yeah. Do you remember the first time you ever picked up a golf club?
I don't. I'm the youngest. My brother Philip, who lives in Ogden. He's 2 years older than I am. And I just did whatever he did. And thank God when we were about, I want to say 12 and 10 or 11 and 13, our father came to us and said, you need to pick one this summer. We're not going to play baseball and golf tournaments. You have to pick one. And I was going to do whatever he decided. And when he decided on golf, then that's kind of the summer that I decided I wanted to see how good I could get at it. And, he hasn't led me in the right direction very often in my life. I'm not going to lie to you. But in this particular case, that's one for the last 40 years. Let's see what happens next.
Well, I mean, I've known your brother for many, many years when he was the pro up there at Topsail Greens in Hampstead, and you would come down and practice on the areas down there. Why did you go to ECU? I know you went there. I'm going to talk about your creative writing major in a little bit here. But why ECU? Because it was close to home in Durham?
No, because I could play. I could have gone somewhere better, but East Carolina at the time played in Duke's tournament, Chapel Hill's tournament, Clemson's tournament, and I couldn't play on any of those teams my freshman year particularly. By my senior year, I could have played on all of them, but I don't think I would have developed that quickly sitting at home. So at East Carolina, I could go and immediately make the top five and travel and go play against Len Matisse and David Duvall and Chris Patton, who won the U.S. Amateur at Clemson, and the list goes on and on. I got to play against those guys immediately. And, oh, by the way, East Carolina had a 6-to-1 girl-to-guy ratio, so it wasn't a hard sell for me either.
So there was a different non-golf reason. I got to WCTI in New Bern in 1989. You were already starting to win some tournaments. I remember covering you when you were at ECU because your junior and your senior years, you were just starting to win a lot of these tournaments. And then, if my research is right, after you got out of ECU, you entered a mini tournament and won it. And then your professional career started. At that point in time, were you pretty confident that you were going to be able to make a long-term living playing this game, or was it still, I'm going to see what I can do?
No, I had no clue. I turned pro that week because the week before, the week after my last week of college, my last college tournament was the regionals at Yale. The next week was the North Carolina Amateur at Alamance Country Club. I think I shot 18 under. And I think Paul Simpson who's the winningest player in the history of the Carolinas Golf Association, shot 19 under. And I think Steve Isley, who's the pro down at Oak Island, shot 3 under and finished third.
Right.
You can check the math on that, but it was a very wide margin. And I thought, well, I can't beat Paul Simpson, but he's gonna keep pretending to sell insurance and win all the amateur tournaments. And I went down and turned pro and Sea Trail. I don't even know if Sea Trail is still there.
Yeah.
And I won $1,800, and I thought I was loaded. And for me, I knew enough people that had tried it and not made it, that as long as you have a chip in a chair, to use the poker metaphor, as long as I had enough for the next entry fee, I didn't care how I lived. I was willing to do anything. I didn't care if I slept in my car, which I did. And I didn't care how far it was to the next event that I was going to drive and get there in my Honda Civic. I was willing to do whatever it took. And fortunately, I got into the system very quickly. That was back in the days of Q school. And I got to the finals right out of college. There were just 2 of us that year that got out of college and got to the finals of Q school. That's how different the game was back then. Brett Quigley and myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was part of the system. Even though it was the Hogan Tour and there was no money there, I always felt like I had a place to play. And that was, I think, a big part of it.
Is that where the players are the hungriest? Do you remember that being, minor league with wooden bats? It's the love of the game kind of level, right?
It's that, and there's a real sense of camaraderie that doesn't get talked about. And maybe it's different now because now there is plenty of money out there to make a living. But you're in it together, the first tournament I won out there in 95, and that's after struggling for several years, I won $36,000 in the first event of the year in 95. That wasn't even enough to cover my expenses for the rest of the year. Plus it was in California, so they probably took a third of it. So, it was tough sledding the entire way, and you never got far enough ahead to feel comfortable. It was great. It was the hardest dollar in sports. They cut to 60 in ties as opposed to 70, which is what the PGA Tour cut to at the time. And you had to shoot, several under par every week just to make a check. And if you didn't finish in the top 25 or 30, you were probably still losing money that week.
Now, you did play, I guess you went to Q school, played about 10 years on the pro circuit. I think it's funny that when you look at John Maginnes and the research, it says career earnings $1.7 million. A lot of people would look at that and say, wow, he made $1.7 million. But that's over 10 years, and
right.
It's not the glamorous life that many people think it is, that you're traveling to all of these great courses and playing all of these great places. It's a cutthroat business and a cutthroat industry, is it not?
It is, but then again, thanks to Tiger Woods, it's become a whole lot more palatable. And Tiger in a stretch from 99 to 2008, doubled the purses and then doubled them again through TV contracts. And so, my rookie year, it took 180,000, 170,000 to keep your card over the whole course of the whole year. I think this week, when the Northern Trust is over up there in New Jersey, look at the payout. And I bet 180,000 is somewhere around 15th or 20th in that tournament alone. So the money is so massive now that, a guy can have a $600,000 a year job and lose it because he didn't make enough money to keep his card, which is fine. That's great. I'm thrilled to cover it and to be a part of it. But that's just the evolution of things. The beauty of TV, what we're doing here, the interest level, people care, and therefore they get paid.
You always, I've heard several interviews, you say you were a talker on the golf course.
Oh, yeah.
But not everybody is. And no. I've heard you say, again, in some of the other interviews and even some of the podcasts that you've been guests on, that you tried to get some people to talk and still they didn't want to have anything to do with you. Is favorite stories?
So Barry Williams is a longtime tour caddy. Came out with me 18 years ago. maybe 19 years ago. He's currently caddying for Kevin Tway on the PGA Tour. He lives in Wrightsville Beach. He also will take you redfish fishing, and he'll fill the boat up. So Barry's a good guy to know. We're playing with Nick Faldo at what's now the Valspar on a Saturday, pretty early. I'm happy with the tee time. Nick probably hadn't had a tee time that early on a Saturday in a long time. And Nick didn't talk. And I looked at Barry on the practice range and said, I'm going to get this guy to talk today. I said, I am. I'm going to get him to talk today. And I'm chattering to him, walking down the first hole and the second hole. And finally on the third hole, I said, hey, Nick, did you ever play in the old J.C. Penney here? Kind of grunted at me. I said, we're a PGA Tour player, an LPGA Tour player, team up. Grunted at me. That was kind of it. Kind of gave me the Heisman, and that was it. He just wasn't playing with me anymore. He sped up a little bit. That was it.
Really?
Some of the great talkers of my generation, Rocco Mediate. We used to have talking competitions. Chris DeMarco.
I covered Chris at the University of Florida when I was down in Gainesville. What a great player, and a nice guy too.
Fabulous guy, fun to mess with. So in 2002 at the U.S. Open, I was playing with him on Saturday, and we're standing on the 5th tee waiting, the big backup, and I nudged Barry again, and I said, "Watch this." He said, "Oh, don't do it." I said, "Chris, you've been having a pretty good run here. You've got to be top 30 in the world, something like that, aren't you?" And he said, he looked at his caddy. He said, "What were we coming in here, 6 or 7?" And I started laughing. He said, "Oh, you're messing with me, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm messing with you."
Inside
made 4 birdies in a row after that.
There you go. Inside the ropes, are there strange conversations that you're hearing among these guys?
Oh yeah, you spend that. They're having the same conversations on the golf course if they're friends that you're having with your buddies on the golf course. They're talking about their families. They're talking about restaurants. They're talking about the game last night. All the same things. Because essentially, especially now, these guys don't have any fun off the golf course. They're not allowed to. They're barely allowed to go to dinner with the COVID protocols and all those things. But they, even before that, they ate a lot of lettuce and spent a lot of time in the gym. We didn't do that, I could tell you, back in the 90s.
You've been doing the SeriousXM Radio thing for quite a while now. How do you and Brian work so well?
We like each other, and then we don't like each other, and it's perfect. It's like I spend as much time with him as I do anybody. He's very intelligent. He's a great radio guy. I've learned a lot from him, and we respect each other's point of view. We don't always agree. It's better radio when we don't. We know that, but we have a good time. We do 2 hours every single night, and we get great guests, and we have a lot of goofy fun. But at the end, we know we're talking about a game here. If somebody calls in and wants to talk about politics or something away from the game of golf, they've called the wrong show. There's plenty of places that you can go to get yelled at 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the afternoon on the radio.
Or just go home.
My place is not one of them.
When you took the chance in Omaha, I've heard the story that you said you were in Omaha and got the opportunity to fill in. And then you did it in 2004 and got the opportunity to do the rest of the year. Okay, I've got to buckle down. I think I can do this for my next career. When did that kind of play into your mind?
Not really ever. Until probably 06. I still thought like everybody, I thought I was going to be able to play. In 04, I got very lucky in that I was hurt. I had surgery on my right elbow, and my agent called and said, "Do you want to do TV?" And I said, "God, no. Are you kidding me? I don't like those guys." And he said, "Well, hang on a second. It's Thursday, Friday coverage on USA Network." This is before the Golf Channel got it. And it's from 4 to 6 on Thursday and Friday. So essentially you're going to walk about 6 holes with a group or 7 holes with a group. He said, and the first week is in Dearborn, Michigan, the Senior Players Championship. I can get you in Wednesday night. I can get you out Friday night. They're going to put you up at the Ritz-Carlton and they're going to pay you $5,000. I said, you know what? I think I could fit that in. And that's how it started. The next week was the Buick Open, also in Michigan. And I asked Tiger a terrible question on Friday night, and it got me the job. And I still thought I was going to go back to playing. And in 2005, in fact, had 19 tournaments on a medical that I did play because I couldn't afford not to. And at the end of that, it was during that year when it was clear that my game was never going to measure up anymore, that I had to make some decisions. USA Network had already invited me to come back whenever I wanted to. Excuse me, in 2005, PGA Tour Radio started doing live play-by-play coverage. So there were 2 jobs, not particularly lucrative jobs. That first week was the best week I ever had, but they were jobs, and I could do them. And then it was fun to be a part of a team. As you know, as you're sitting there,
right?
You may be the only person in a one shot, but there's 30 people behind that camera and another half dozen in your ear telling you things and keeping you up to date. And it's teamwork, and it doesn't work without everybody working together. And I had never had anything like that in my life before. So I got pretty excited about it and tried to learn the nuances of when to do things, when not to do things, when it's okay to go off a little bit and get off tangent and be funny during broadcast, and when it's time to be very serious. So I fell in love with it and tried to get better at it. And here we are 15, 16 years later, and they still let me do it. I keep waiting for somebody to tap me on the shoulder and say, all right, son, now go get a job. But yeah, I don't know what I'm qualified to do. You mentioned that creative writing and oh, by the way, and philosophy from East Carolina. There's not a great big philosophy firm out there willing to hire a 53-year-old guy whose only ability is to not say every third word.
And I keep waiting for them to change the door code here on me, and they haven't done it yet. So I'm still hanging in there too. But you were so used to being on the course. You were so used to being right there with the microphone and seeing the way the green broke. But then the pandemic came, and you had to do some of that from your own basement.
Yeah.
Now, you guys make it sound so easy because of your knowledge of the local layout, but that had to be terribly difficult to try to make it sound like you're right there. This is going to break 3 feet left or 3 feet right. How tough was that, and how tough is it?
The hardest part was the PGA Championship at Harding Park that Colin Morikawa won. I had been to Harding Park for the President's Cup, 16 years before. I didn't remember any of it. And, I was doing exactly what you're talking about. I'm doing research. I'm looking at the yardage books. I'm looking at the greens books because I had no frame of reference. All the other courses, I've walked, I've been on. So you at least have some sort of memory of it. That PGA Championship was exciting, but it was really tough. And you're right. I was in my basement. This is before we moved down here. I was in Greensboro, and I had a monitor. I'm linked. Amazing, the technology, because we had people all over the country. I think there were 6 broadcasters on the call, all from remote locations, all with monitors in front of them at their homes, and managed to pull it off and do it. And that during that same period of time, didn't have any producers in the studio in DC for the radio side of things. So we had to pre-record all our shows. So we just went through our Rolodex, and if you go back and listen to the shows, they were awesome. But, it was like the bass player for REM, Mike Mills, for an hour. And then it was Ron White for 45 minutes because, those guys didn't have anything to do either. They were thrilled to talk to us. They weren't busy.
Why did you move to Wilmington?
I've always wanted to be here. When I first got out of college, my first wife took a job at South, and we lived in Southport. She worked on Bald Head. And so I used to drive up here to play golf just about every day when the Nicholas course had a trailer as the pro shop at Landfall, and Porter's Neck was just opening, and loved it. And then got married and had a couple of kids and raised them in Greensboro, and loved Greensboro, loved raising kids there, but always wanted to be here. I got remarried, have another child, have a 2-year-old, which is a blast. And I talked her into it. I said, let's move to Wilmington. And so we did. And we've been here for a year now. She's opening a yoga studio downtown. We bought an old house that'll never be finished. I think when you buy a new house, you're finished, and when you buy an old house, you're never finished.
Yeah.
So we're in the historic district downtown, and it's a blast. We're loving it here. The people are incredible. Riding bikes around to restaurants and avoiding the traffic on Market Street. It's all part of it.
How is fatherhood treating you the second time around? I saw you at the Eddie Hanneman tournament, and that young one of yours was keeping you busy running around all over the place. How do you like fatherhood the second time around?
It's so different, John, because when the other two were born, I was playing the PGA Tour. I was involved in this very selfish thing that you had to sort of break away from to be a parent. And now I'm not worried about going broke. I'm not worried about losing my job. I mean, I probably should be worried about those things, but I've discovered they don't put you in jail for them, and that you can still be a good father with or without those things. So I've really enjoyed it this time. He's a terrorist. He's wide open. He doesn't sleep. He's so much fun. We just spent this morning on the south end on the sound side of Wrightsville Beach, and then we went to Trolley Stop for hot dogs. I mean, we are tourists in Wilmington who live here and get our mail here.
It's like you got a mulligan almost, right?
Right, exactly.
I had the chance to walk inside the ropes a couple of times. Number one, at the Emerald now in New Bern, the Curtis Strange Shrine Classic. I was the MC there for a couple of years. One year I did it when Curtis had Arnold Palmer come in. Another year I had the chance to do it when Curtis had Michael Jordan and Peter Jacobsen come in. And I was walking along and put the microphone up, and they had a speaker on a golf cart, and I was giving the crowd what the guys were saying. So I got a small taste of what it's like for you inside the ropes and doing your job. You've got to be having fun because I know you love golf so much.
I'm having fun, and it's more fun when I get the guys who want to talk. And you may be surprised by the guys who will come over and carry on the conversation. You probably won't be surprised that Jordan Spieth does it, but Patrick Reed, there's a guy that is much maligned, but if I'm walking down the fairway, he'll talk to me. Bryson DeChambeau, he'll talk to anybody about golf as long as you're not giving him a hard time. DJ, even, who doesn't say a whole lot, will give you a grunt, and I do love it. I try to stay out of the way as much as possible. There's people in my position that walk right down the fairway with the guys, having conversations with them. I try to make myself available if they want to talk to me, but I try not to make myself part of the story. Plus, when you're walking with them, you get on TV, and the camera really does add 20 pounds, and it's not pleasant.
Do you have to walk a fine line because you talk about these same guys on the radio show? You interview them after a round sometimes. You get 3 questions from what I understand. So do you walk a fine line of making sure that you can still ask the tough question, or you can still do that criticism and then still be treated the same way on the golf course?
I've had it blow up in my face a few times. I won't lie to you. Usually, though, it's the agents, and most of the time, it's a misunderstanding, and that's perfectly fine. At the end of the day, I don't get paid by the players. I get paid by whomever it is that's paying me. But when I'm working PGA Tour Live, I'm getting paid by the PGA Tour, and you know what? They're going to listen to the players. So yes, of course, there's a fine line, and I think the ones who've been around know that I'm not going to break any confidences out there. The game itself is entertaining enough. I don't care who you're dating. I don't care who you're married to. I don't care if both your wife and your girlfriend both show up in the gallery. I'm not going to talk about that. I want to cover the game of golf and the personalities that drive the game. The other stories that come about, and you have to talk about them in the talk show format. But like I'll give you a perfect example. Matt Kuchar a few years ago ran afoul of public opinion when he won down in Mexico, had used a local caddy, didn't pay the caddy what everyone seemed to think was the right amount of money. He ended up making good on that, but that was a story we had to cover. And I felt bad because I really liked Matt Kuchar. And I said that. I said, look, he'll do the right thing here. He probably just didn't realize he made an agreement with this guy at the beginning of the week. He paid the guy what they agreed on, and now everybody's up in arms. And I may have given him a harder time than that, but I think we're okay. I think that they understand that we're doing our jobs.
Do you remember the last time you said wow on a golf course when you were doing your job?
Yeah. I've gotten to see some things that were wow worthy. The way that Dustin Johnson drove the ball at Omaha, the way that Rory McIlroy drove the ball at Valhalla when they won. Those are the two best driving exhibitions I've ever seen. I mean, consistently 330 to 340 yards and majestic. Now, different. Rory's goes straight up in the air and comes straight down, where DJ's is a more boring shot. But and then the short games that these guys possess are just outstanding and fun to watch. So yeah, I think I say wow a lot. And I tell you, when I say wow, every year going forward now, because SiriusXM has a contract with Augusta National, walking on that property. As soon as you walk on that property, that's a wow. As soon as you get around the corner on number 3 at Pebble Beach and the ocean exposes itself around the dogleg down the 17th, that's a wow. The church pews at Omaha, they're a wow. So the game still wows me quite often.
I'm turning 60 years old next April. I've played Pinehurst, been blessed to play Pinehurst a couple of times. Where should I go to play golf? You've been everywhere. Where do I need to go to play golf on my 60th birthday?
When my brother turned 50, he said, where do we go? I said, we go to Pebble Beach. I said, it's expensive. I'll set it up. And we took 4 of us, and we got on Cypress Point too, which made the trip that much better. But we played the Olympic Club when we landed in San Francisco, and then drove down, played Spyglass, Pebble, and Cypress Point. That's about as good a trip as you could take if you don't want to bounce around quite that much. Bandon Dunes is in Oregon, is 5 golf courses now, and a par 3 course, and you can stay right there on the property. Great food. I mean, it's just golf heaven. And if neither of those appeal to you and you want more exotic, the Ring of Kerry in Ireland, we take a trip every couple of years, and I've been told that I'm Scotch Irish. It's not true. When I'm in Ireland, I'm Irish.
You know, it's been fun to watch your career, because I remember seeing you in an ECU Pirate golf shirt carrying your own bag, and to see you give the tour a try, and now your success on SiriusXM, but also PGA Tour Radio. You're a writer now, you do some writing. It's been fun to kind of watch you and follow your career for so many years.
Well, I appreciate it. I've been, I think the word blessed is overused sometimes, but I've been blessed, and I've been lucky, and I've been a product of some great environments that I've been in that have allowed me to make some mistakes and to continue on. Kevin Landy, who's the director of communications at the USGA now, was the first guy to hire me. That's the other thing about my business, is it's very small. He was at USA Network back in the day. That first year I made some mistakes, and he set me down and said, you have a chance here to be good at this, but don't screw it up by getting a bad reputation. And he was 100% right. And so, you know, I'm very lucky to have been able to do the things I've been able to do.
And you can tell that you really do love the game. You love talking about it. You like people who like golf. I think that's the way I would put if I had to describe John Maginnes. I think you like people who like golf. True?
Absolutely. I think that if you've taken the time to become a proficient golfer, and by that, I don't care what your handicap is, just somebody who understands how to play. Whether or not you can actually still do it or ever could do it is immaterial. I think if you've taken the time, you've done enough looking inward to have some redeeming qualities, because you face your foibles every single time you play this game. And so to be able to face those is at least a stepping stone in character. So the people that I know in this game tend to be people of great character. And who doesn't want to spend time with those guys and gals?
Yep. Amen to that. Well, John, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you got to start your prepping for your SiriusXM radio show. Get that young man of yours, take him outside for a walk, and enjoy the day here in Wilmington. Thanks for taking the time to be with me today.
Thank you, John. Let's tee it up sometime soon.
A big thank you to John Maginnes for joining us here on the One-on-One podcast, taking time away from his family and his job. You can hear him nightly on Catrick and Maginnes on tap on SiriusXM PGA Tour Radio. It's on channel 92. It's a fun listen. You need to give it a try. The website for the show is kmontap.com. You can also follow John on social media. On Facebook and Twitter, he is at John Maginnes, and he's Real John Maginnes on Instagram. Now, before we go, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please download and subscribe to the One-on-One with John Evans podcast on whatever app you use to listen to your favorite shows. And if you would be so kind, please leave us a rating or a review. We really do want to know what you think of our interviews, and the more feedback we have from our friends like you, the higher we'll be listed on the apps, the better chance we'll have of bringing in even more new listeners. I'm John Evans. Thanks so much for joining us for this week's episode of One-on-One.